Okay, welcome back, everybody. See, a pending assistance call just came in. We'll help you out after the break, or during our next lab break. Okay, so one of the questions which has been coming in is it possible to compare two sets of data, two schemas, and identify if there have, in fact, been changes? And the answer is yes. And we'll be taking a look at that in this exercise. Just waiting for the page to open. Maybe I'll just send out the link to everyone while we're waiting. There we go. Okay, so detecting schema drift with the schema scanner. Schema drift can happen over time as things change, or because perhaps the standards that you had set down ended up being considered more as suggestions with attribute names and the such. For example, we could have the original data set that has a path ID, a path name, path length, and path type, and that ends up being path ID, path name, path length ended up being called distance, and the path type was left out entirely. So what we want to do here is identify that this has happened and then direct the output to to a different writer or a different feature type if necessary. In the exercise, you'll be starting from scratch, but I am just going to demonstrate what the final workspace looks like and talk about some of the more interesting points of it. So we have two readers here. We have our original data set, byte paths, and byte paths consists of a, just scroll over here, path ID, path name, path length, and path type. A new window we have can also show this. We have a schema preview, which goes up here. So if I click on a feature type, I can see that these are the attributes that I have. And if I click on the updated data set, I can see that it's a little different. Path ID, path name, and distance. So the way we do this is that we put each one of those data sets through the schema scanner, and that will get us our schemas. From there, right now it looks like it's putting out 11 features, but it's not. Spreading things out is useful. Notice that actually looked like 11, which would be entirely wrong. This is why I like spreading things out a little bit. Now, the schema feature is a single feature with a list attribute. In order to do any sort of comparisons, we will want to explode those list elements into separate features. So that's what the list exploder is for. So that's actually going to give us a separate feature for each attribute name. And we have that up here as well. So we have a separate feature for each attribute name. And now we can do a comparison with the change detector. So in the change detector, we are going to be checking the checking name, this one here, to see what we have. So we can see here that we have one inserted attribute, distance. This is in the new data set. It's not in the original. We have two deleted. These are in the original, but not the updated. And then for the unchanged, we have path ID and path name. Those are in both data sets. And then you can direct these outputs to whatever you like to create your report. So that is an example of identifying that schema drift has occurred. Generally with these situations, this isn't something that you'd want to automate. It's more of a notification, letting people know that this has happened, and then they can go back and fix it. If you get into a situation where someone asks, well, can you fix it too? Just be a little wary of that. Usually if something's changed like this, you'll want to get some eyes on, unless it's a really predictable way in which things have gone awry. I once did a project for the Egyptian Survey Authority, and it was taking a bunch of CAD drawings and loading it into ArcSDE. The CAD drawings had been digitized by hand, and there was a lot of digitizing issues with it. The basic workspace, which I had up and running in about a day, could have identified these bad features and simply written them out to a report, and then someone could go take a look at these individual features and fix them. But they asked me, could I fix it programmatically? And now instead of a one-day workspace with maybe 20 or 30 transformers, this ended up being a year-long project with 300 or 400 transformers in it, trying to catch every single one of these little little edge cases that they had for how poorly digitized the data was. So generally speaking, if something's wrong with the data, it's better to report it and then have someone go fix it, unless it's really in a predictable way that it's going wrong. Someone had a question here. So on change detector, can you detect multiple, or can you select multiple attributes to compare? Yes, you can. So if there was multiple ones that I wanted to do, now if I'm looking to see if name has changed, in this case, if I wanted to do something else, I'd probably want a separate change detector. If I wanted to see if, well, in this case, it's just like name of the attribute. So we could also check to see if attribute types have changed. So yes, you could do that. You could bring in the FME data type. So if that data type has gone off, you could detect that. But keep in mind that the data type, this is something where if it's changed on the source, it doesn't necessarily matter. During the translation itself, for the most part, these features are unaware of their data type, and then they're just cast to the appropriate data type on the output. So I don't know if that's useful. Element index, maybe the order, you could use that to flag it. Maybe in those cases where, okay, columns are out of order, I need to check that they're actually in the correct order, or that the order has not changed. So this could work for that. Just keep in mind that that element index, that means that if they've added a new attribute and it's at the beginning, that just breaks everything else as well. So yes, you can check multiple attributes. In this instance, I think name's the only one that really makes sense. Now there's another question here. How can attributes, usually part of a feature, can themselves be distinct features? And that is the action of the list exploder. The list exploder explodes list elements into individual features. So if a list, and a list is a numbered array of attribute values. So we have your list, my list 0, 1, 2, 3. Your list is my list. If I explode this, this would become 4 features. I would have a feature with attribute 1, or the value for attribute 1, another feature, another feature, another feature. So that's how we're taking a single feature and exploding it into multiple features, because each feature is that list element. Okay, the lists, depending on the timing for when you did FME Form Basic and FME Form Advanced, FME, the list handling section used to be in FME Form Advanced, but we moved it into FME Form Basic. So if you took FME Form Basic quite some time ago and then took FME Form Advanced, if the timing wasn't quite right, it's entirely possible that you missed the list handling section of the training, where we do a deep dive into lists. So I'll dig that up once I set you guys off to do this exercise, and I'll put that into the chat so you can go review that section at a later time in case you missed it. Okay, so that is the exercise detecting schema drift with the SchemaScanner. So please do that exercise, and we'll continue at, let's say, 12. Give you a little bit more time to take a look at that, 35. So at 12:35, we will continue.